Okay. So, I thought today to talk a little bit more about metta meditation, because I think metta meditation was very often taught by the Buddha, and I think it's a very useful thing to purify oneself. And it's always, if you find that meditation is difficult, it's hard to follow the breath or hard to do whatever, usually it is because the mind isn't pure enough. And then metta is what can help you to do that purification process so that all types of meditation become easier afterwards. So just a few hints on how to do the metta meditation. Remember that to be able to have metta, this idea of loving kindness towards somebody, you have to see the good qualities in that person, right? You cannot really have metta unless you see something nice, something beautiful in the person that you're trying to have metta towards. So therefore, for that reason, it's always good when you start off the metta practice to start with somebody you respect, somebody you see a lot of good qualities in, and start off just by reminding yourself of the good qualities in that person. So if it is, whoever it is, just remind yourself for a couple of minutes of the good qualities. And this is what metta is about. It's about focusing on the goodness and pushing aside anything that might be bad. Or not really pushing it aside, but by focusing on the good, the bad tend to be kind of disappear right from your mind. And then, when you really see the goodness in somebody, then it's possible to wish them well from your heart, right? You can say, may you be well, and you can actually mean it. You can't mean it if it is to somebody who you don't like, or you don't really have any good feelings towards whatsoever. So first of all, find that good, see those good sides in the person. And the second thing is when you visualize that person, you see them in the same way. You see them as something beautiful, right? You see them with a smile on their face, serene, at ease. It's almost like the good qualities come out of them when you see them. And the last thing is that when you see them in your mind's eye, you don't actually make eye contact with them. It's not a relationship thing between you and them. It's basically you are just observing them as a third party. It's like you are standing from afar away, almost like seeing them through a telescope or whatever. They don't know that you are there. You just see them happy. You see them in this beautiful way. And then that is how you can start to actually come from your heart, actually, may you be well, may you be happy. And that is how you can get the feelings to arise. And sometimes people say, oh, it's so hard to get the feelings up, the metta feeling is so hard to give rise to that feeling. And sometimes that's true. But a lot of this practice is not so much, it may not be easy to give rise to the feelings, but even if you can't do that, at least you are learning to perceive in the right way. You're learning to perceive somebody in a way that eventually will give rise to that feeling. Right? You're learning to see the positive. You're learning to not focus on the bad. And eventually, if you keep doing that, it will give rise to a good feeling. So that is one way of doing the metta. There are other ways too, where you don't actually focus on individuals, but where you focus, for example, just on the direction. And some people find that easy rather than focusing on individual. You just focus on a particular direction, say the northern direction or the eastern direction, and you just imagine a being out there. And you just remind yourself of all the good people out there, of all the people with good hearts. We know that in the eastern direction there are enormous numbers of beings, right? And there's bound to be a large number who are very pure, very kind, very good beings. So imagine that being out there, nobody in particular, no specific face. You bring up the good qualities and you wish all those good beings out there, you wish them well. That's another way of doing it. It's less personal, it's more detached. You're not actually using a specific being. So different people find different ways of work. So try out a little bit and see what works for you. And once this starts to work, it has a purifying effect. And then hopefully you will find that your meditation more generally also improves. Okay, so let's try to do some meditation together. Okay, so just start off as always with just making your body at ease. Always remember that meditation is really about getting the body out of the way so you can focus on the mind instead. So the body should be at ease, no pains, no tensions, no problems, where the body just fades into the background. That's the right kind of body here. And just spend as much time as you need to make sure the body is just right. Don't move on to any further meditation before you feel really at ease and relaxed in the body. If you move too fast, it's not going to work. And when the body feels just right, then start off the meditation by just learning to be the passive observer, to be completely non-judgmental, nothing being right, nothing being wrong. And then, as you do that, you find that things start to calm down. And just try to feel how beautiful it is just to be able to sit here having nothing to do except just enjoying the silence, enjoying the peace. For these few minutes there are no burdens at all, there's no work, there's no family, no house, no nothing. Just a sense of peace. How wonderful, how beautiful that is. And now bring to mind somebody you respect for their spiritual qualities, and just take a few moments to reflect on those qualities, reflect on the kindness, the virtue, the compassion, the peace, and also the wisdom in that person. And allow yourself to be inspired by those good qualities. and then see that person in your mind's eye. You can see them, they cannot see you. And see them with a nice smile on the face, the smile that reveals all the good qualities lying behind it. And then wish them well. May you be happy, may you be content, may you find a true release from suffering. And then imagine the northern direction and all the beings to the north, all the people with good qualities, with good hearts, striving to make a difference in the world. all those good people out there, where they all find true fulfillment in their lives and a sense of ease from suffering. now turn your attention to the western direction. And again, imagine all the beings out there, all the people with good hearts and with good qualities, all of them so deserving of happiness, so deserving to an end of problems. And yet sometimes life is difficult. Things often don't go the right way. All these good beings out there, may they all be happy. Allow it to come from your heart. May you be happy. May you be released from all these problems. And move your attention around to the southern direction, all the beings to the south, and remind yourself how vulnerable everyone is, in particular the animals, but also the humans, how vulnerable we all are to suffering and problems. and also include the monks down at Bodhinyana Monastery here, wishing them all well, trying to develop their minds. May you all be well, may you find peace and be free of suffering here. And then bring your attention around to the eastern direction. And again, remind yourself of all the beings out there who are worthy of your good intentions, of your well-wishing. Include the nuns at Dhammasara Monastery. May you all, everyone out there, may you find happiness, may you find a release from problems. And then bring your attention back into this room. And now direct the attention towards yourself. And remind yourself that all these problems you sometimes face in life, there is nothing at all you can do about that. This is part of life. Life has its sufferings, it has its up and downs. Have compassion for yourself. May I too be free of suffering. May I find real fulfillment and contentment in life. Okay, are there any questions or comments before we close off? Yes? Okay, Christina has some questions. Okay, thank you. Anybody from here? Everybody happy here? Yeah? Okay. So, these are one from Singapore, from Tan in Singapore. During meditation, when a thought arises, I reflect on why the thought arises. Is this being mindful or just thinking? Is reflection the same as mindfulness? It is not exactly the same. It really depends on what part of the meditation that you are working with, what stage of meditation you're at. If what you want to do is just to be peaceful, it's often better not to reflect on the cause, but just try to be aware. Just stand back and just see the thought. And when you just stand back and see the thought, what you're doing is you're not feeding the thinking process. And when you're not feeding the thinking process, it tends to calm down by itself. So sometimes it's better just to stand back. And you will notice, of course, that during meditation, even though you try to stand back, often you get caught, right, in the thinking. It's as if you become part of the thinking, and suddenly you, oh, wait a minute, what's happening here? And you come back again. And when you see that happening, just allow the thinking to stop by itself. Don't force your mind to do anything in particular. And then when the thinking comes to a stop by itself, all naturally, then you can remain at peace, even if there's a bit of thinking there. So don't worry too much about why the thought arises. The reason why thinking arises is usually very simple. It's usually because you're not really satisfied where you are. That's why it arises. You get restless because you're not fully satisfied. You fantasize about something because you want to get out of the present moment. It's quite simple why thinking arises. You don't really have to investigate it that much. So just once you understand the basics, you just try to find the pleasure in meditation. The more pleasure you find in the meditation, the less the mind will go into other things. It's very simple, really. And this is why it is so useful to do things a bit like metta, trying to get the joy to arise inside, get the sense of happiness, a sense of peace to arise, because then you have a natural point of focus. You don't get distracted with the thinking and all these other kind of things. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. This is from Kanchana, from Bunbury, down south. I heard when practicing meditation, Dhamma discussion is important. Sometimes I do not have anything to ask, but the answers given to other people's questions have helped me. Am I practicing in the right way? Yes, sure, that's good. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. There's no need to kind of make up questions just for question's sake. Sometimes people have too many questions. That's also no good. So you kind of find a balance. Not too many questions, but when you really need to ask something, that's a good time. There is a nice sutta where the Buddha talks about when is the right time to ask a question. When should a monk or a nun go to the Buddha and say, help, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And one monk says, it's in the morning time because then you have time, or it's after the meal because then there's no disturbing, or it's in the evening because then everybody gets together or whatever. And then the Buddha says, no, all of those things are beside the point. When the time you should ask a question is when you have a problem in your meditation practice that you can't resolve. That is the right time to ask a question. So yes, I think you're practicing in the right way. That sounds good. But if you do have a question, please ask. Then there is Sujiva from Sydney in Australia. What are the blue lights I see during meditation? This happened after about an hour or more after doing walking meditation before going to work. Okay, it is very hard to know what these things are because the mind can often create all kinds of things. Lights. Sometimes people see lights and all they really see is just the light coming through the eyelids. That happens sometimes as well. But often it's the mind creates things. So don't worry too much about whether you see a light or not. What matters is your state of mind, right? So what is your state of mind like? Are you feeling peaceful? Are you feeling a sense of joy? Are you feeling clarity? If these things are there, you're on the right track. If you feel confused or frightened perhaps, well then you should be careful because that's tending in the wrong direction. So then you may want to open your eyes. But if you're feeling all the right qualities, then there's nothing to be afraid of, and you're heading in the right direction. Okay. Okay, so let us pay our respects to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha.